In this video, I will share with you the key learnings that I've gained from making over 1,000 beats and posting over 300 videos on YouTube in the last 5 years. I will go in detail about my top learnings in beat making, business, and networking, and give you practical action steps that will help you with your own music career so that you can save all the time that it took me to figure out all these things on my own. Let's start with the producing itself. On social media, it's so easy to compare yourself to others. And even though you can learn a lot from other people, or in this case from producers, you should always keep in mind that you have your own specific life situation. And that's why lesson number 1 is move in your own pace. There's this one quote online which might have popped up in your feed as well, which says something like, Obama retired at 55, Trump started at 70, and there's somebody who became a CEO at 25 and died at 50, and another one became a CEO at 50 and died at 90. This quote just describes perfectly that you are never too old to start something, and also, even though it looks like everybody in your age is ahead of you, in reality, you're at the right spot at the right time. I started making beats when I was around 20 years old, watching guys on the internet cook up beats that were probably around 15 at that time, getting all these placements, having that huge success, and I think it's pretty easy to fall into the trap that you compare yourself to those guys and think, it might be too late for me, these people already started when they were young, that's my competition. Just because I started when I was 20 doesn't mean it's perfect for you. When did you start making beats, for example? Let me know in the comments. When did you start making beats? For how many years are you producing? I bet there are some guys that started at a young age. There are some guys that started at a late age. Don't start to doubt yourself just because it takes a little bit more time for you to figure out all these things that other people already figured out. This is why I'm doing this video, so you can save all the time that it took me to figure out these things. And once you realize that you move in your own pace, there's another component that is super important, and which is lesson number 2, find your own rhythm. One of my absolute biggest learnings in those last years was that commitment makes the difference. But since everybody has a different life situation and you cannot apply all schedules to everybody's daily routines, you need to find your own rhythm. That's why I prefer to treat music like a sports training, because I will not miss practice because of the commitment that I made. There's a time and a date, and I made the contract with myself that I will show up at this time, at this date, and just do my best. But with these kind of self-organized things like making beats, for example, where you don't have anybody else to tell you what to do and tell you the exact time, you need to do it for yourself. That's why I personally use a Google Calendar with which I plan the next day the evening before. I then just block my times where I want to cook up, make loops, make beats, or work on content like I do at this moment, depending on the other to-dos and the other commitments that I have throughout the day. So if you don't have a calendar at the moment, start to plan your days now. That's how you take control over the time and don't let the time control you. And once you got the time under control, you can start doing business. So let's talk about business. Business is a field that I started to figure out probably in the last year. Music has so many different possible revenue streams. You've got placements, you've got selling sound kits, you've got selling beats, you got doing content and make money from ads revenue or sponsorships. There are so many opportunities out there. And at one point I realized that I tried to manage too many of those things at the same time, which led to nothing really show any significance. That's why my key learning in business was focus on one area at the time. Let me give you an example. Let's look at a music career as a wooden board, and every possible revenue stream is a nail. So now you start to hammer in the first nail. You give it a couple hits and it goes slightly into the board. Then you start to hammer in the second nail. Give it a couple hits until you move on to a third nail or a fourth nail. Now you've got 3 or 4 nails slightly in the board. If you would have focused on hammering the first nail into the board and put all that energy that you've given to nail 2, 3, and 4 into the first nail, you would have seen much more success. And the cool thing about music is there is time and space to hammer in every of those nails. But don't try to figure out as many things as possible at the same time. If you want to get placements, start with placements. If you want to build up a personal brand, start doing content and focus on your content. But if you just started, start with one field and expand after you hammered in the first nail. And one of the most common ways to start with is one that I will talk about in a minute when we talk about the next topic, which is part of the business and one of the most important parts when it comes to music. It's networking. I've always seen other producers talk about how important networking is.
This game is like 80% business, 20% skill. The networking factor of what I did, like that's really like where I got like all my relationships and my shots.
And don't get me wrong, it is. But I've always assumed that it's such a difficult thing to do, when in reality, it's easier than you might think. Because networking becomes easy when you put out your stuff everywhere. In my experience, nothing builds better relationships online than having stuff available for everybody. free. If you post beats, loops, and content so that people can see what you have to offer, it becomes easy to get in touch with you and also way easier for you to approach other people. Nowadays, your social media is kind of like a personal website. That's why it's so important that once you approach people, or if you want other people to approach you, that they can find everything that they need to know about you in a couple of seconds. Even though you might love your family, maybe get those pictures from your last Christmas party out of your Instagram account and try to keep it a little bit more professional. And also don't be afraid to give out your stuff for free. It will definitely pay off in long term. And this is the common way that I've mentioned in the business part is, for example, you can just post your loops for free on YouTube, let the people come to you, download your stuff, and if it's fire, they will get in contact with you and you can start to network from there. I will also give out some free loops in this video. You can check the first link in the description. And if you think those loops are fire and you want more loops like that, you can also check out my newest loop kit, which is the second link in the description, which is only $5 for 10 placement ready loops, high quality stuff. I can really say that putting out my stuff online is what had the biggest impact on my music career. Simple as that. So don't be afraid to put out your stuff everywhere. And if you want to start doing that by posting your beats on YouTube, you can also check out this video where I will explain you everything you need to know so that you can start your first successful type beat channel.